So those were some of the ideas that we also, as New York State did, had in our minds and were going on as we were preparing for this Recovery Act. And I've tried to cut through some of the chaos, describe what I would think would be 3 phases of our approach to recovery. One would be analysis and planning. And that's clearly what we're doing here, clearly what we're doing with all of our national organizations, trying to figure out what is in that 1,000-page bill, trying to figure out what that Section 132 refers to over here in the other legislation, and whether the money has to be appropriated by our legislature. It does. We have to get it appropriated. So just the WIA money, as far as I know. There might be a couple of other things that have to be appropriated as well. But there's all kinds of analysis, and we've been through that today, reaching out to all of our national organizations. And also, you know, we're not having weekly phone calls with our WIB directors, but we probably are going to need to start that, because they've been an enormous help in trying to help us figure out how we could get this money to flow. We also did immediately a paper called Where the Jobs Are. And we started with our labor market information folks, and we said to them, you know, you're going to have to change too. You can't just give us back historical data. That's not going to be any good anymore, because history, to some extent, ended December 30th, 2008. Now, maybe that other guy who wrote that other book about history being over was wrong, because it really ended on December. Because now the future is not based upon the past. The future is going to be very, very different. And so what we have to do is to come up, not only look at historical numbers, we have to look at our new hires data, and we have to look to our industry partnerships, and we have to look to what's going on in our system to find out where the jobs are. All that's important. The next phase, we think, is going to need to be communication and implementation. And we're thinking about, obviously, ways to communicate what we're doing. And the OMB circular that was mentioned before requires an enormous amount of transparency, and so we're going to provide a lot of information, which, you know, sort of reminds me of the old thing we used to do when I was a community organizer. The saying was, if you can't, you know, dazzle them with brilliance, you bury them with data. So we're going to provide a lot of information. In fact, we've come up with a name for our website. It's going to be called Stimulating Times. Some people wanted to call it Stimulating News, but I like Stimulating Times better. And we hope to use that to provide lots of information up there. We are already being asked to provide guidance to the locals and to tell the governor's office what the guidance is that we want to present. I think Bruce's advice is good. Just do it. You know, provide guidance, wait for the real information to come later. We may require our locals to spend 75% of their money on training, but we realize that there is going to be tremendous staffing needs. We want the guidance to attach them to our industry partnerships. We divided our state already up into 7 regions so that we can do regional meetings to figure out how best to get this information out. We think part of phase 2 is also preparing for the competitive grants. And that's basically, I told my staff, learning how to be a referee and an umpire all at the same time, because there's going to be an extraordinary amount of interest in competitive grants. And I think we should encourage DOL to take their time on the competitive grant side, because I do think we need to see how some of this other stuff plays out, so that when we do go in for a competitive grant, that we'll know where to go to ask for the funds. Now, that doesn't mean we can take our time, because people need to be working on this almost immediately. And finally, phase 3, what I would call basically course correction and improvement. And that is basically figuring out, you know, who's not spending their money and taking it back, because if they're not going to spend it, we're going to take it back and give it to somebody who is. Finding out what's working, tweaking some of the ideas that we had, stealing from other states, from anybody who will share anything with us about some great ideas. And the idea of using these dollars for public sector employment is an intriguing one. So I'm going to be staying in touch with Bruce quite a bit. So that's basically where we're looking at it. One of the things that I'm reminded of after I finished this run and came to the top of this hill, and I felt pretty bad was that half of the run was over, and a good part of it was now going to be downhill. And so that's what I think we need to think about, is the downhill that comes after this great work we're going to do. And I really do think that we have to express confidence that we know how to handle this, that we've been ready for this, that we've been prepared for this, and that we'll do it well. Thank you.